All right, welcome back to the Strongman Say after a small hiatus. It's been like 3 or 4 weeks. Missed last week, obviously giving. Oh, well, I wasn't giving birth.
Giving birth.
Yeah,
You're a bit lighter?
Yeah,
A bit lighter?
Oh, I am a bit lighter, actually. Actually, when we were in the hospital, Erin, one of the members, works in the kitchen there. So she saw that we were in there. And one of the nights, I ordered my dinner. So the night before, it comes out and it's all pretty normal, like hospital food. The food was pretty good, actually. And then the next night, Erin's on, and the lady comes in. She's like, "Oh, someone in the kitchen says hi." And I open my meal, and there's like the biggest bit of chicken, and like my veggies are doubled up. I've got 2 desserts. I've got custard. She gave us like 2 drinks. We get our supper, and there's like 8 Tim Tams on there with teas and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, this is nice."
Good to be in Geelong.
Yeah,
Someone knows you
got the
somewhere.
hookup,
Yeah.
But yeah, 100%. Last week, obviously not here because we're hanging out in the hospital with our little son.
Yep.
Which is cute. So 9 days a dad.
It's an elaborate way to get old man strength.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work just to get
It's a
old
lot
man
of-
strength.
It's a lot of work to get 10%. Yeah.
Get parent strength.
Parent strength. I don't know. I trained last week and it did not go well. I thought that I'd just come in and have like an extra 10%. Everyone's talking about this holy grail that is dad strength.
Yep.
But I came in and I was probably like 20% weaker, not 10% stronger.
Maybe it only works for mums.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it doesn't work the week of.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it was very stressful for me, very physically taxing for me, of course.
Yep.
I said, someone was like, "Oh, you've been, it's quite a big week." And I was like, not really for me. I mean, like up a bit more and there's a lot going on. But I mean, I didn't give birth. Like I'm still in the gym. I'm still feeling motivated. I was training fine last week. Like there's no reason. I was like, there's no logical reason to be back a little bit, but it happens.
Just a little bit tired.
Yeah.
That's it.
Maybe a little bit tired. Today's sort of first thing that we're going to talk about with a whole bunch of comps coming up was the infamous, or not infamous, weight cut.
Ooh, that's relevant to me right now.
Yeah, also me.
Yeah. Actually, mine's going well.
Yeah.
98.1.
Nice.
Which probably sounds like a long way off 90, but that's where I want to be.
I was 109.5 and I was like, "Oh, not there yet."
Yeah.
But it's 4 versus 8 kilos over.
Well, it was 102 at one stage.
Yeah.
So
You can always
I've got it
come
down.
up.
Hmm?
You can always come up.
I just spent this long getting 4 kilos off. I'm not putting it back on.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So you've just been dieting at the moment?
Yeah, so I hadn't tracked food
Yeah.
in ages because I'd been able to get away with it. And like I eat pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas this time I was just too far gone. I was like, I actually have to track how much I'm eating, find out how little I can get away with.
Set like a baseline. I get an understanding.
Actually
of where
start
you're at.
seeing weight drop.
Yeah.
Not just stand on the scales and go, oh, it's the same as 3 weeks ago.
When you started counting calories, where were they?
I didn't count what I was eating.
Oh, so before you started, you didn't get a baseline of like where you're at. You just
Nah,
started with.
Because it was
like,
all over the place.
change. Yeah.
I'd get Uber Eats half the time.
Mm.
I'd get a coffee and then I'd get a random hash brown.
Yeah.
Or if you go up to Daniel's Donuts, there's donuts. So like there's little
Did
things.
you really abuse the Daniel's Donuts?
A little bit.
Yeah.
It was a 3 week
I
period.
didn't know that. there was a time in my life.
It was a 3 week period. There was like a lemon cheesecake one and a jam one. That's all I need.
Leigh Shaw, you heard it here first, in donut rehab.
Yeah.
He's fishing for a sponsorship.
Yeah, Daniel's Donuts, unsponsored.
Give me more donuts.
Yeah.
Not right now.
No, I was going to say you don't want that sponsorship right now.
They still have good coffee.
Do they? Yeah, there you go. Is that what you tell yourself when you go through drive-through for Daniel's Donuts?
No,
babe, I'm just getting a coffee. They do real good coffee.
Well, the Macca's didn't open until late half the mornings,
Mm.
and that was the drive-through on the way to work. And then Untitled's out that way, and you have to pre-order and everything else. And then the roads have been closed, so like getting out to that one.
I hear a lot of excuses leading to donuts.
Yeah, and it's just closed.
I feel like like now that you're weight cutting, it's like going through Daniel's Donuts is the Globo gym guy off dodgeball, like going through drive-through, trying to get a coffee, just looking at the donuts, like, just give me a smell. Just give me a smell.
Going through and ordering just a coffee from a donut place feels dirty.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. 'Cause you're just like, can I just get a skinny latte? And they're like, anything else? I'm like, no.
And I want one so bad. Don't tempt me. Don't ask me again. Anything else? No, thank you. Anything else? Anything else? Yes, 2 donuts, please.
Okay, drive around. Did you say a 6-pack? Fine, I'll have it.
Twist my arm.
Yeah. So because I have the same like smoothie for breakfast and I have pretty much the same lunch.
Yeah.
So when I started tracking, I would just figure out, okay, what do I want to make out of that? What do I want to make out of that? Where is it at?
Yeah.
And then kind of mess with my dinner from there.
Yeah. I guess like one of the big questions that we get often is, where should I be starting my water cut? Which is an interesting question because it's so dependent on the person, right? And so dependent on your experience and understanding of where or how your body reacts to a water cut. Do you want to jump in a sauna, and a whole bunch of other factors?
Yep.
I mean, obviously getting as close to through diet can be beneficial, but there's also drawbacks as well, depending on where your competition weight or where you see your competition weight is. Yep. And like like for us coming up, like how many competitions do you have in a row at that weight class too? Yeah. So you diet, what's your, so you've come from 102, which is like competing in the 90s, you know, that's a 12 kilo loss.
Yep.
Into a competition, which is a huge decrease in total body mass.
Yep.
And 2, obviously will have or could have some implications around performance. I mean, 1, during training, something that people forget is if you're losing weight or dieting means that you're not taking in the caloric amount to maintain your current homeostatic level, right? Like where you're at. So if you're dieting, it literally means that you're not taking in as much food as your body needs.
Yeah.
Which obviously is going to have some impact on performance, more than likely.
Yeah, the only way I can try to counteract that is I was eating a surplus of calories.
Yeah.
Through pretty average choices.
Yeah.
Most of it was pretty good.
Yeah.
But then there's donuts and all sorts of crap sprinkled on.
Yes.
Not eating enough food now, but it has to be good food. It has to be food that'll actually help.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just going to be hungry all day because I had a donut and I'm like, sick, that's half my day's food.
Yeah. So like low density, high volume foods is obviously, I mean.
And actually tracking macros better. So like performance should be better for that, but obviously worse off because I'm not eating enough.
Yeah.
And hopefully that meets in the middle somewhere and I don't see too much shift.
So if we break down making weight into like the first phase, which is the get your body weight within a range, and we'll talk about water cutting in a second, but first and foremost, the first phase would be get your body into a range where you can strike from with that water cut, right?
Yeah.
That's number 1. And so the first thing for you, and I mean, very similar to me, is basically look at your food choices.
Yep.
And the best or the easiest way to diet without or minimizing or mitigating the impact on performance is focusing on nutrient-dense foods and nutrient-dense foods that are high volume. So you're still feeling sated. You're not hungry all the time. You're getting good nutrients in and focusing on like your macronutrient breakdown and skewing it in a way, or skewing those calories that you have in a way that you are prioritizing performance, I guess.
Yeah. And for now, like with all the apps out there, you can track macros, micronutrients, you can track everything. So there's not really much excuse to be like, oh, I'm deficient in this, or I've had none of this, or
what app do you use?
I just have the free MyFitnessPal because I just literally put in my meal.
Yep.
They've changed it and everyone's pissed about it because the price has gone up and they've removed a heap of features from the free part.
Yeah.
So there's better apps apparently. I can't remember what they're called,
but
there's
my
much
diary, which is reasonable.
There's much better ones.
Yeah.
Whereas I'll use that and I'll just put like a meal into one day.
Yeah.
And I'll put my other meal into another day and then I can see the breakdown.
Okay.
But then I don't touch it for a month.
Yeah.
I don't do it every
day.
day.
You don't need to track every day if you're eating the same thing.
Yep.
Majority of the time, you can track for a day, get an idea, and then when you make altercations, you can track again.
Yep.
In a month's time if you need to.
Yeah. So I'll do that. It's to double check things as well. Like there's little things I'm putting food in. Like you can look up nut tab on everything, and that's the actual proper government set out calorie basis. Yep. So if you just put in white rice, blah, 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 and put it in, that could be anybody that's just chucked in white rice.
Yes.
So if you look up nut tab and there's certain things you look up and it's like, that's actually
just
accurate.
As a reference.
Yeah. So I just use that.
Do you cycle through high and low days in terms of calories, or just eat the same thing every day?
I eat pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I think getting closer to comp now, if I had to eat less, I would probably start trying to muck around with that.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, can I eat more around training? Can I eat more on like a deadlift day?
Yeah.
Can I eat less when I just sit at home and do check-ins and do nothing?
Yeah, I mean, I do.
For now, I'm just simple.
Yeah.
Like I keep it relatively the same. The meal sizes are the same.
Yeah. I certainly just prioritize food on my bigger days.
Yep.
Which allows me to eat. For me, it makes sense, or I find it very easy. I eat less on like rest or recovery days, or like smaller sessions. Like my Sunday's a run at the moment. So and I'm not a good runner currently. So I don't need to fuel myself up exponentially for like a 20 minute jog.
Yep.
So, Sunday is like relative rest day. So I just consume far less calories and focus on protein.
Yep.
Where like today and tomorrow, like my log and deadlift day, I'll pretty much like eat my normal food, but add some carbs and stuff like that, and probably some snacks just to make sure that I'm full and I'm fed and I'm like fueled for performance.
Yep.
So there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, right? I mean,
yeah. So normally, if I was eating a lot of food, I could come in and train at 10 in the morning, no breakfast, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
Whereas I think last week or the week before, came in, I just had breakfast and then tried to train.
Yeah.
And I just felt tired.
Yes.
I was like, maybe it's because I didn't eat lunch as well, and lunch is like pasta and.
Or maybe you're just tired.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just tired.
There's so many factors.
I think things can go wrong easier because you're just not eating enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas if you're eating heaps of food, it's pretty easy. You just come in and lift, make sure you sleep reasonable.
Yeah.
You're going to recover.
Do you still focus on relative carbohydrate? Like when you're looking at your macros, you're still trying to push the majority of calories through carbohydrates? Or are you more monitoring your macronutrient intake and looking for a certain percentage, or are you just kind of monitoring and less so thinking about that?
No, I've always stuck with protein being, what's it end up being, whatever it is per kilo.
2.2.
Probably less.
Yep.
What's it end up being? It's like, I think 220 grams. So 1 gram per pound.
Yep.
Or whatever that works out to be.
Yeah.
Fats will try to stay at like 80 to 100, not go over 100.
Yep.
Pretty much minimize those as much as possible.
And you can tweak that. Yep.
Pretty much. So that's the thing as well. Like if people are taking PEDs or not taking PEDs, that can influence macros massively, because it's like
can influence how the weight drops.
Yep.
Too, for sure.
Yeah. So there's always that as well. Like you have to have a certain level of fats in there to keep healthy hormone function and things like that.
Yes.
And it's like, well, if you're taking hormones as well, plus that amount is a lot lower.
Yeah.
Who was it? It was like Broderick or somebody used to always rattle off all the tests that they did over in third world countries in like low fat diets and everything like that, and how they would go. And it turns out the amount of fat they needed was very minimal compared to protein and carbs.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So,
I mean, phase 1, food, diet, there is an exponential amount of ways to make that happen or create that drop. And depending on like how much you have to drop, like I'm coming from, I was 109.5 this morning. I came from like 112.3, the heaviest post eating like an asshole.
Yeah.
Put my weight back on. Like not eating like
pre-birth.
I was eating really well, but I was eating really well, much like you, eating really well, but a lot of additions.
Yeah.
Right? So like my food much stays the same, but I was just eating a lot on top of that, or being more relaxed with my breakfast and dinner and all that sort of stuff. Now, my striking, I like to be 108-ish,
Yep.
which makes for a very easy water cut, and I don't have to stress about it too much. And that's sort of my preference, especially if I am doing, we are doing 3 comps in a weight class over 3 months. So you're making weight sort of like 3 times in the space of 3 months. So getting closer to that makes for much easier transitions from weight cutting to getting back to it.
Yeah.
What's your striking weight?
At the moment, now it's like 97, 98.
Yeah. Okay.
I know I can do that because I've done it before.
So you're basically there.
Yeah. Whereas like 2-3 years ago, that would have scared the shit out of me.
Which is why we're talking about the experience thing, right? Like dropping 8 kilos in the space of 24 hours to put that back on is no joke. Now, advantages and disadvantages of, so I'm a 3 kilo person.
Yep.
You're a 8 to 9 kilo person with a weight cut, right? Advantage for that lower weight cut, things are a lot easier or less taxing during the weight cut, during the water cut. I don't or should not have to sauna.
Yep.
And for me as well, I mean, it's a little bit different with a 24-hour weighing, but I found that like 110, 112, my belt fit different.
Yep.
And like we're 108, my equipment fits this right. Like it feels right. So there's a difference in terms of like when you start to put on a little bit more weight or be a bit heavier, things start to change. Like how you move starts to change. I have to take my stance out a little bit. So there's a few things with like being a bit heavier that you have to make some adjustments for. Now, making a bigger cut, advantages and disadvantages.
Advantages, you're walking around heavier. Yeah. You're training heavier.
Yeah.
You're generally stronger. Like weight doesn't move weight 1 for 1, but weight moves weight.
It helps.
It doesn't make it worse. Bigger people aren't generally just weaker on average. Like, has some truth to it.
Yes.
So there is that. You're going to be the bigger end. You're going to fill out your weight class more.
Yes.
As long as your body fat's not really high, then you're going to carry the most amount of usable muscle weight that you can in that weight class. Mm-hmm. So if you have a truck pull, you have a deadlift, you have so many things where it's just good to be a bit heavier. Mm-hmm. That's going to help.
Agreed. And I mean, the big advantage is being able to make weight at 90. And with the 24-hour weighing, which our sport is, you have a rebound period where you could be 98 or super compensation rise, like you could be 100 come comp day, right? So you're not competing at 90, you're competing at 100 kilos.
If I cut from 98 and then I competed at 92, there'd be no point.
Yes.
I may as well just be 92.
Yeah.
Because now I just come in and I'm light and depleted and dehydrated. Yeah. And the same weight as everybody else that's not.
So clear advantage for the big weight cut is sort of that rebound and being a bit bigger or heavier post the water cut.
Yeah. So like if you do 3 kilos.
Yes.
And then what's Camby do? Like 115 or 118 or something?
Yeah. Like so a lot of the...
So he's 10 kilos heavier than you.
Yes. Yeah, it makes a big difference.
In a lot of sports, that's 1 to 2 weight classes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah. Small boy.
Yeah. There's one thing, and we talk a lot about the overseas scene because I think it's nice to shine a light on for people in Australia, which is a small pond, to sort of get a bit of a better lens into like what goes on elsewhere.
Yep.
Most of the guys when I did OSG or like overseas when I'm competing over in Europe and stuff, a lot of the 105s cut from like that 112, 115. Some diet down to 115 and then cut to 105.
Yep.
I remember Derek Cox at the finals of OSG who came second when I competed. Talking, and he was a big guy. He was talking or saying that because it was a 3-day competition, by day 3 he was 122.
Yeah.
Which is wild. That's a big difference for someone who was sitting at 108, 109.
Yep.
That's a huge, huge difference. So obviously disadvantages for the small weight cut is like you don't have that rebound. Like you're competing lighter. And not heavy doesn't always mean better performance, but definitely with some things and in general, it definitely can help.
Yeah.
Right? Disadvantages, just like fatigue or...
If you get the cut wrong and you have to suffer a little bit more... it sucks.
Yeah.
And there's a slight disadvantage.
Yeah.
you mess it up over a larger scale, it sucks a whole lot more, and there's a lot more suffering, and also the potential. Like if you refeed, and you're kind of lazy with it, or you eat the wrong foods, or your stomach gets upset, 3 kilos you got to put on.
Yeah, that's probably
like you come in a kilo under.
Yeah, that's probably something.
If I screw my stomach up trying to refeed, like I'm in a bad place.
Yeah, the refeed thing. We'll talk about after the water cut, but the refeed thing is probably something worth touching on too, because I mean, we've probably all done it where you eat the wrong food and then suddenly you can't eat for 3 hours.
Everyone weighs in and goes to the cafe and gets an eggs Benny.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I remember being like, when I was powerlifting in the under 100s and I was doing a similar cut. So like this is why I went to 110, because I was cutting from 108, 109.
Yep.
And down to 100. And I remember like making this big cut, being stoked about it, and then going to the cafe or something like that and having a huge fucking breakfast and then lying down on the bench seat afterwards, like feeling like absolute shit. And then I couldn't eat for like 3 or 4 hours. And every time I ate, I could only eat small amounts because I was just feeling like shit. And that's a great example of fucking it up.
Yeah. Very easy to do because you're hungry, you're thirsty, you've barely eaten all week. You might not have eaten for 36 hours.
Oh, yeah.
You might not have drunk a drop for 36 hours.
Yeah. Often fast, like 24 hours.
So then you get the green light. It's very hard to sit there and go, I'm just going to sit with my Powerade for 3 hours and watch everyone eat.
Yeah.
And then you have like a liter of Powerade and you're like, oh, I'm full. That felt like a big dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, your stomach shrinks a little bit too, right?
After I weigh in, like I can't sweat the rest of the morning because I've spent the morning sweating to make weight. Yeah. Even in Queensland, like I weighed in for middleweight series. I couldn't sweat all morning. I weighed in, I drank a liter of like, it was Powerade or whichever it was. Absolutely poured out sweat. Yeah. And I'm like, I need this to stay in now, not come out. But my body just like, once it took on water was just like, it's this big shock.
It's in that, that cycle.
Yeah.
Like it's getting fluid. And because you've just trained it for a week to take in water or take in fluid and dispel fluid straight away because you're doing it so often. So it's kind of in that cycle of like in and out, which is what we're trying to do in that water cut phase. So water cut, you're 7 days out. What does your water cut look like?
I'll play around with sodium as well a little bit. So like 3 things will be sodium, carbs, and water. Yep. Carbs are going to have to come down. Yep. Because each gram of glycogen stores X amount of water. Yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head. People go on a low carb diet and they're like, sick, I lost 2 kilos. Yep. Like, lost a lot of fluid. Yeah. So that will taper down probably from that 7 days out. Yep. And it would probably be as simple as like cut them in half. Yep. Then to a quarter. Then to kind of nothing. Yep. And roll with that. Water will go up. Like if you're someone that drinks heaps of water, it makes it harder. Yeah. If you're like, I drink 6 liters every day. Okay. It's like, okay, well, usually like double is a good way to really start a process, but like can't just go straight to 12 and then
waterlog you,
go to 15.
Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah. So like 8 to 10's a rough ballpark. Yeah. But also like tapering up. Yeah. So you can taper up, that's fine. Yeah. You don't want to taper down.
I found it interesting when people taper down.
Some people taper down, and I'm like, you give your body a chance each step of the way to adjust.
I've never really understood the taper down thing when I see people do that. So like, I taper up, and like obviously you taper up, and I've seen people water cuts with a taper down. Yep. And it's never really made a lot of sense to me. But hey, each way, everyone's got their own way.
Yeah, and I mean, it still might work, but it's about the most efficient, quickest, easiest way that you can strip the weight off and then get it back on.
So you're weighing in on a Saturday morning. Yeah. Monday through to Saturday. Give me a rundown.
If it's Saturday morning, so water load maybe starts Monday. Yep. Be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yep. Pretty much 4 days, maybe 5 days. Like if I'm not drinking much, then I'll take longer to taper up because going from 2 liters to 8 sucks. Yeah. You hate it. 2 days in, you're looking for water. You adjust real quick.
Yeah, you do adjust very quickly.
But to just jump straight to that, like, it's not pleasant.
Yeah.
Especially if you've still got training, you've still got life. If you're working,
yeah,
you can't be peeing every like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You're kind of going to be anyway. Yeah.
Just FYI.
So that might go, if I drink 4 liters, that would go 6.
Yeah.
Then maybe like 7, then maybe 8, then maybe 9. See how it feels.
Yeah.
Usually by doing that, you kind of lose weight anyway.
Yeah.
Like if your body's kind of ahead of itself, you drink heaps of water, you don't drink that much before bed, you go to bed, you get up, you pee.
Yeah.
Your body flushes a heap
You
out.
wake up in the morning
and you're like,
lighter.
oh, I'm a kilo down.
Yeah.
So that just doesn't always happen.
Nah.
But if it does, it's nice because you feel like you're progressing to the end of the week, even though you're smashing water.
Yeah.
And, you know, your carbs are dropping. So there is.
Mine often doesn't really do like, and that does happen. I mean, personally, mine often doesn't. Often. So mine would be Sunday. I would probably have 4 to 6 liters. Monday 6 to 8. Tuesday 6 to 8, and then like Wednesday, Thursday, anywhere between 8 and 10. Basically, like as much water as I can manage and be okay with throughout the day. Pretty much just looking for steady stream, right? Like I'm just going to the toilet very, very regularly. I would wake up Friday morning and drink to like get that stream happening to like signal, like, because I've obviously not been drinking overnight. I kind of get my body signaling, and let's say it's a 24-hour weigh-in and it's like 10 o'clock. I would kind of preference like hitting that water between like probably latest 12, usually about 10.
Yep.
Drinking as much as I need to kind of get that stream happening again, to just kind of like trigger my body to be like starting to cycle through water as much as possible during the day.
Yep.
My carbohydrate intake will have dropped probably in those last couple of days. I'd be watching the sodium just for like the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yep.
I'd probably move to lower density foods, or like probably like protein, fat, less carbs. So I'm still like being sated or not too bad. And then maybe fast for like that 24 hours, or depending on how my weight's going. Do you know what I mean? Like depending on how hard the cut is. But I would often Thursday night jump on the scales. Let's say it's my last water loading full day. I would often jump on the scales, probably 4 kilos heavier.
Yep.
So if I start at like 108, 109, I'd be jumping on the scales at the end of the day of obviously drinking at like 112.
Yep.
And then over the next 24 hours, I'd be probably making 105 to 106. I would be expecting.
Yep.
So my weight doesn't necessarily drop throughout the week when I'm jumping on the scales, maybe in the morning a little bit, but pretty much like throughout that week as I'm water loading, I might actually see a spike in weight. And if you're not experienced, you might go like, oh shit, like I'm 7 kilos away from my weight.
I'm going backwards.
Yeah, I'm going backwards. I'm 7 kilos away from my weight class and I've got 24 hours.
Yeah.
But that's the magic of water cutting, right? Because then over the next 24 hours, you have to spell a lot of that water, and then suddenly you're, every couple of hours, if you're jumping on the scales, or that night and that morning, you're kind of like, whoa, like I'm coming down. Like, here we go. This is it. So, I think it's important to know everybody's a little bit different.
That's why you get a control on, like, if you start water loading Sunday, you weigh yourself that morning.
Yes.
That is your
baseline.
That's your baseline before you start fucking everything up.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Like while you've been going smooth for weeks, it's like that's what it's consistently at. Yeah. Now we're going to change everything.
Yes.
Whatever your weight does after that, whether it goes up or down, like great or stressful, doesn't matter.
And you got to trust the process.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. Like
you got to remember that that's what you weighed on Sunday.
Yeah.
So it could do anything after that.
Important to note as well that when you're starting a water cut, or when you're first experimenting with water cutting, that it's better to start smaller.
Yeah.
Don't jump in at like the 8 kilo mark, because you don't know how your body's going to respond at all.
Well, when I first started doing 90s comps, I was 88.
Yeah.
I turned up to weigh-ins with like a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
And a drink, fully clothed, and weighed in and watched people that were hungry. And I'm like, oh, how you guys doing? So hard, this business, right?
The tables have turned.
Now I hate that kid.
Because I stand on the scales when we're in Brisbane. I was standing on the scales, drinking Powerade the night of the competition, just like watching my weight and starting to rehydrate. And Leigh was just dying in the corner. I was like,
yeah, you're like, let's get a weigh-in photo. I'm like,
yeah, I feel flat.
I don't want to do anything right now. Get a weigh-in photo.
It wasn't happy.
Yeah,
didn't use it.
Can you smile? No. Takes too much energy. I'm dehydrated. I'll cramp. So yeah, I started like that.
Yeah.
And then eventually got to 91 and I'm like, oh, okay, I probably shouldn't eat dinner the night before.
Yeah.
And then it just grew.
Yeah.
Over time.
And it's like, okay, I'm 93, 94. I'll do a small water cut. I'm 95, 96. I know how my body responds to a water cut. I'll do more. Okay, I'm 98 kilos. I know I can handle an 8-kilo cut.
Like lifting weights, like what's another kilo?
Yeah.
I know I can do this.
What's a dangerous game?
Well, over time.
Yeah, over time, right? You start to know how your body responds. You start to know how hard it's going to be to cut X amount of weight, or how comfortable, or what is a comfortable cut and what's not a comfortable cut. But I think the important thing to note is if you're going to water cut, that you haven't done it before, that like a 2 to 4 kilo range is a very good way to start experimenting with it. And then if you respond well, if you cope well, which is I was
going to say that's the other thing too. Like at some point before you start, you have to be honest and go, mentally, can I do this?
Yeah.
Like I'm not mentally tough. I just check out.
Yeah.
Like I just shut down. So everyone's like, are you suffering? Tough. Are you hungry? Yeah. Sorry, I'm eating this food in front of you. Do you care? And I'm like, I'm doing this to myself.
Well, you just have to, and it's
like this is my choice. Like
I have to.
I'm not starving in a country where I can't get food and I need to fight for it.
Not a choice. Like you do ASMS. Like it's not a.
It's a choice. I got heavy.
Yeah, it is. But you got heavy. But now you're in it, and you've got to make weight.
Yeah,
that's not an option.
That's my choice.
So it's like if someone's eating around you, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm not offended by that. Like, I've got to make weight. This is my thing. I'm here. I'm doing it. That's it.
Yeah, but that's treating it like a job.
Well, it is a job.
Yeah.
You've made it your fucking job. If you're cutting 98 kilos, that's a big cut. If you're cutting 8 kilos, or if you're cutting 6 to 8 kilos, that's no longer treating it like a hobby. Like you have no business. And this is the other thing that we need to talk about is you've got no business water cutting if you're just like, it's a hobby. Right? Like you don't need to put your body through this stress to come 6th at a competition that means fucking nothing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
you've got to pick something that's important.
You cut for something that's important, and if it matters, and you're going to put your body through that stress. Otherwise, you're having the potential to affect your performance and your actual lifting and your enjoyment of the day. Like you don't need to go through this huge water cut or like even a 4 kilo water cut to go compete at a regional or intermediate level competition where there's nothing really to gain by water cutting besides potentially a poorer performance.
I should add what's important is relevant to the person.
It is.
Because I'm cutting for Vix, and for a lot of people that might not be important.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a state level competition and
it's all relevant.
It's all.
So what I mean is if you're cutting a lot of weight for a comp that everybody else is like, it's just a local comp, it's this. If it's important to you, push yourself and do it.
Yeah.
But like if you don't really care that much about the comp, don't suffer because it's not going to be worth it.
I just don't think there's any reason to cut to come 5th or 6th and go have fun at a comp.
Yeah, but
you're cutting to win the 90s.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's got to be important.
Yes.
Like the training has to match up, all the effort has to match up, and then you're like, well, it's worth suffering to make weight.
I think personally, in my opinion, the beginner intermediate should be more worried about what their performance is on the day and lifting loads.
Yep.
And worrying about the weight cut stuff and the weight class stuff a little bit later.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. But I think that if you are starting off in the competition and you've trained for this competition and you are looking to go lift numbers, and something that was said to me very early on is that the numbers on the bar are more important than the numbers on the scale when you're starting off.
Yeah.
That's what I think that is probably a take home for beginner intermediates, because I see so people quick to like jump on the water cut bandwagon to make like weight classes. It's good experience at those lower levels potentially if it's like something that you're wanting to do as you creep up to the higher levels of competition. But at the same token, I think that if you are starting off in the sport, if you are at a beginner intermediate level, then you should be focusing on output and performance above and beyond the weight class, especially if you're at the level where, you know, if it's an important comp to you and you think that you've got a chance of winning in the 90s, then absolutely, like, go for it, right? But if you're in the thick of it in both,
Yep.
You know, if it's like you could do 90s or 105s, it's not going to matter. You're probably going to be mid-level or mid-pack.
Yep.
Then just go have a crack at the competition that makes more sense to go have some fun and actually like perform very well.
Yeah. I mean, easy way for beginners and people starting out with weight cuts and what weight class you sit in. There's not really weight classes. They're height classes.
Yeah.
If you're 6'4",
yeah,
and you're trying to squeeze into 80s,
yeah,
you eventually have to give up on 80s because as you get stronger, as you grow,
yeah,
as you become better at your sport, you're going to grow out of that weight class.
Yes.
So you may as well pull the pin early and just go, I'm too big.
Yeah.
I'm too tall.
And it's, I mean, this is
If I was your height,
yeah,
I wouldn't be doing 90s.
yeah,
I couldn't do 90s.
And if I was another 4 inches tall, if I was 6'2", I would.
You probably wouldn't be. Yeah, you wouldn't be trying to squeeze into 105s because everyone would be like, "You've got the build to go up,
carry it 100%."
Yeah. So that's an easy way starting out. If you're fairly tall,
yeah,
you're probably not going to squeeze into that lighter weight class for long. Not if you want to improve.
And if you're fairly tall and you're consistently trying to cut weight to make the lower weight class because those loads are achievable. Because that's why people do it. It's like, oh, I'm not quite ready for the 105 weights, or I'm not quite ready for the next weight class up weights. You're only deterring your ability to step it up by constantly trying to be in the lower weight class.
Yeah.
Like if you're constantly trying to get down to 90 because you're not ready for the 105 weights, why not eat to 105 and train a little bit harder for a little bit longer with a little bit more mass?
Yep.
And achieve the 105 weights.
Yeah. It's not always easier too. If I squeezed and cut into the 80s, those guys are really quick. I'm used to lifting heavier weights. Yes. I don't move that quick.
Yes.
Might not be an advantage to me to go down. I'll be stronger than them.
Yeah.
But they're probably going to beat me on a yoke.
Yeah.
So it's not always like a win-win.
Yeah, there's pros and cons.
Yeah, like, oh, the weights are more achievable. I'll be more competitive.
Yeah.
It's like that class could be stacked.
Yeah.
Could be less competitive to go up.
Mm-hmm. And it depends on the weight class too.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, a lot to consider when like weight cutting. Refeeding, last.
Pretty much you just get in everything that you take out.
Yeah.
You're dehydrated. You have lack of water. You'll lose sodium, potassium. Like
Sodium,
a lot of things will drop.
The two big ones.
And then you're not eating many carbs.
Yeah.
Your stomach is empty. Your glycogen stores are empty. Your muscles are flat.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get all of that back in as much as what you took out.
Yeah.
So if you took 8 kilos worth of things out, you need to get 8 kilos worth of things back in, potentially rebounding and sitting on the heavier end.
Yeah.
I think I was like 101 before Toowoomba, the night before, and then I woke up and it was back to like 85, 98.5.
Yeah.
So kind of corrected itself.
The thing that I would say that I see people mistake or make the mistake of is like, you know, you're talking about the eggs Benny thing, like high fat foods, high protein foods, having protein shakes. Like, not the priority, bro.
I avoid all protein because I still get heaps of it because I'm eating so much through the day, but I'll dodge it.
You, like it makes you like it fills you up.
Yeah.
And like the high fat foods, like you don't need to consume, or you want to avoid stuff that's going to hinder digestion.
Yeah.
And like protein's going to make you feel, if you feel full, like we eat protein when we're dieting because it like helps satiation, right?
Yeah.
So it's like when you're trying to reload, when you're trying to bounce back, it's carbohydrate. It's like salt, potassium, like all those really critical minerals, and just like putting glycogen back in, like you've talked about, is the priority.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing. Just to, when you're looking at what foods you're consuming, you don't want to be prioritizing protein, and you want to be minimizing that fat intake. You're really focusing on like carbohydrates in that period.
I probably won't have like a normal meal until like 3 p.m. Or dinner. Yeah. By the time I get to dinner, normally I'd go out, and if like Toowoomba we had a palmy or something like that, I'd be like, I'll have that. Yeah. By that stage, I'm fine. The whole day looks like really bad snacking of like a 10-year-old child.
Yeah, and I mean, some people have
just
that.
Like bread, simple carbs, pasta, like lollies every now and then, like sipping on drinks.
Yeah. Some people will say like keep your food exactly the same as what you normally have. And I mean, it depends what your diet is like and what you normally would have day to day. But I think
keep it the same as the day before I weighed in because I can pack real light that day.
Yeah, yeah, that's not going to do the job.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, it's not so much about keeping the foods or your meals exactly the same, because often those foods, a lot of the foods that we're taking in week to week aren't the priority when we're refeeding, but keeping it to traditional foods or foods that your body is accustomed to processing and digesting though.
Yeah.
I mean, don't throw any curveballs at it. Just make sure you're eating foods that you're used to, or your body is accustomed to digesting. And that makes it a lot easier too.
Yeah. Eat things that you've always been eating.
Yeah.
If you're normally eating bread, if you're normally eating pasta, if you're normally eating stuff that has gluten or whatever it may be, if you normally drink milk, sweet. Don't go and get 2 liters of chocolate milk because that's a good refeed tool. And then shit yourself all the next day. Or like T weighed in for 90s over in New Zealand, and he's like, I got a big sushi platter for after, and I'm like, as long as you're good with sushi and you eat it all the time, but that's
Yeah, I thought I'd try sashimi today.
Well, I think Hayden, after his, he had a dinner, but it was just like an Asian dinner.
Yeah.
Because he was out of the comp.
I might go get a hot Indian curry.
Nice vindaloo.
Felt great on deadlifts though. Who needs ammonia?
Yeah. So yeah, it's just things like that.
Yeah, I like it.
And it depends on travel as well. Like if you have to travel. And cut weight. That throws a spanner in the works.
Definitely.
In planning, in food.
Plane, just FYI. If you're booking a plane and you're cutting weight and you're going overseas, get a seat or ask for a seat near the toilet.
And an aisle seat if you don't want to piss people off.
100%, because if you are going to the toilet non-stop on the plane, it's a really good way to piss off the person next to you. So a recommendation, if you are cutting weight and traveling overseas or water loading while on a plane, because often, because you're traveling the week before, you are, right? And there's factors with being on a plane, you might actually like retain a little bit of water too, like like leave a bit heavier. But if you're water loading on a plane, aisle seat, necessity, and try to get a seat or choose your seat near the toilet because you'll be up and down a lot.
Yeah, we did the night flight across to Finland.
Yeah.
And that's where they just turn all the lights off and they're like, everyone's sleeping. So no one's walking around. So every now and then, like every 20 minutes, my liter of water, I'd have to be like, excuse me, can you fill this up? And they're like, didn't you come back 20 minutes ago? I'm really thirsty. And they're just like, we only have so much water on this plane for like 600 people.
You're consuming all the water for everybody.
This plane goes down, we're screwed. But it's the only way you can do it because you can't take 5 liters of water internationally.
No.
You can't just pack your esky and take it on from here.
No.
So you have to tip your whole thing out, take an empty bottle.
And take it on and water load.
Take it on your carry-on and be like, can you please fill this up?
The other real shit thing about flying and water loading is the meals are so high sodium and also carbohydrate based. So like you sit there and you're pretty hungry, but you can't really eat all the food that they've given you. So you sit there and you kind of pick out like the meat parts or like and like you're leaving all this stuff. They give you muffins and you're so hungry. So you're looking there, so like, don't eat the muffin. Don't eat the muffin. Don't eat the muffin.
Yeah.
Oh, would you like dessert, sir? Would you like a donut? Like,
yes.
Just give me a smell. Just can I sniff it? Can I sniff it? I'll give it to the lady next to me, but can I sniff it first? Traveling while competing. Tips, because I mean, like a lot of people now, we're seeing more people compete internationally, which is cool.
Yep.
And obviously, post-COVID, good to be able to compete internationally again, which is sick. But also, like interstate is becoming way more popular in terms of people traveling a lot more interstate to do competitions that they like or to qualify for events and stuff. Any tips to share with the people, the 3 of you who watch, around traveling and competing? We've both traveled and competed a lot, both interstate and international. Tips?
Figure out where the comp is actually being held first. Sounds stupid. But like if it's in a city, don't just be like, oh, I'll go stay over here in Melbourne. Yeah. When the comp could be 30 minutes of peak hour and all sorts of stuff. Staying in the city in Melbourne just because the competition is like, oh yeah, cool, I'm gonna go Melbourne. It's like, well, it's in Melbourne, yes, but it's
an hour out of the city.
We went to New South Wales Strongest last year and stayed relatively close to the comp.
Yep.
And then when we got to the comp, everyone's like, where are you staying? We said the suburb, and everyone's like, never heard of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's 20 minutes that way. And they're like, nah, never heard of it.
Yeah.
Don't go down that way.
Yeah.
Like, and that's 20 minutes away. Like, you could pick a spot in Manly.
Yeah.
And your comp's way down south.
Yeah. Like we were coaching at New South Wales Strongest and we stayed 30 or 40 minutes out of the city because it was in Sydney, but it was like an hour and a half in traffic to get to the venue.
Half the people at the comp were like, I've got an hour and a half drive home.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't you live in Sydney?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but that side.
Yeah. And on paper, it's not that far. Like you look at the map and we're like, oh, you could stay in the city. But then like when you put it in maps, it's like, oh, it's actually quite a trek. So we decided to stay 20 minutes away from the comp so it was easier, right? So things like that are very, very simple.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like knowing or just having an awareness of like, well, one, traffic. And like two, it's like Sydney, but like it takes an hour to get anywhere in Sydney. So let's stay a little bit closer to the event because the event's not in the CBD.
Yeah. Even like us flying out of Melbourne.
Yeah.
I'll book a time of flights based on peak hour traffic to get there.
Yes.
Because if I'm water loading and if I'm getting to that airport, I don't want to make the first day of travel worse.
Yeah.
So in terms of cheap flights, because everyone wants cheap flights,
Yeah.
I'll always jump on a 6 a.m. versus a 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Because if anything goes wrong, anything gets cancelled, anything happens, there's all the morning flights that they can put me on at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. on that cheap flight. If you drive an hour to the airport and they're like, flight's cancelled, your next flight's tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Earlier is better, right? So don't fly the night of the competition. Speaking of like accommodation and where being in proximity, the other thing, I mean, internationally, we've done this a few times, is a lot of times the event organizers will recommend or have an agreement with a hotel. Important to know that it's not always the best venue. Same with like if you're doing state competitions, I guess, that they're not always the best venue. Sometimes they're still very expensive or they're still quite a way from the competition. Like OSG, our hotel, when I went, was in the middle of nowhere and we ended up spending $300 on Ubers getting everywhere because everything was quite spread out.
See, ours was next door in Daytona.
Which is great.
But it was super expensive.
Yes.
And then, like I said, like Luke and some of the UK guys, they got an Airbnb a kilometre up north and they had a spa and a backyard and all this cool stuff. And everyone else was stuck in kind of the city part.
In a shitty hotel.
That had no
expensive hotel. But
great hotel. Yeah. But no real great food options.
Yes. Yeah.
Or expensive food options. No groceries.
Yeah, like or at
grocery
least, like,
shopping
if they've
over
got
there is
good
bad.
Food at the hotel. Like when I was in India, you couldn't really eat outside of it, but the hotel had a pretty good menu kind of thing, so you could eat kind of there.
Yeah.
But it's like if you don't have good food there and you have to run out all the time and you don't have cooking facilities as well, it can make it really challenging, especially if you're international and you're spending the week prior to a comp, right? Because usually if you're competing overseas, you kind of get there a week earlier just to adjust. Maybe you finish your water load or do your full water load and stuff over there to make it a little bit easier. The only difference or the only change to that is knowing where you're competing, right? Like India, I flew in 2 days beforehand because I wasn't going to do my water load over there because I didn't know what food I was going to have access to and like how much water I would have access to. So I flew in closer. Right, where when we're doing the States and stuff, that food is going to be not an issue and water's not an issue, but jet lag is an issue because it's quite far away. So you get there a week early, you do your load and stuff, then you compete. So understanding accommodation, splitting accommodation with other athletes, whether it's international or like other Australian athletes, is a really good way to minimize the cost. And like we always talk about our community and how good it is, and we all know each other through Instagram. And like I'm a copper for it. Like I'll talk to someone on Instagram and they'll come introduce themselves to me in person. And it's like, sometimes you don't recognize them in like person because they look different, right? Like they're not doing this. Like all my posts are me making faces.
Your face isn't bright red. This is your skin color. You're not screaming.
Sorry, can you hold some salt up to your nose so I can recognize you? I only see your eyes.
Yeah, just yell for me.
Yeah. Can you? Yeah. The Strongman way. Yeah. So, I mean, it's important to understand that, like, and it's not a detriment, like, it's not a slide on anyone. Like, sometimes you just don't recognize people from Instagram in person, right?
Yeah.
Even if you talk to them or you're friendly with them. But reaching out to them, like, hey, I see you doing this competition. Do you want to split accommodation? That would be rad. We can meet each other or whatever. You can get around with each other.
Yeah.
We can split a car. All those things that add up get really handy. I mean, that's a big part or how we became friends is we traveled together. We split accommodation in Finland. And like when we go overseas to competitions, we split accommodation. And that one fosters friendship and fosters like the community, but also, I mean, it's just nicer on your pocket too when you're doing an expensive competition, especially in some areas if you're international.
I think everyone that came down from Steel and Stone to do round one just hired a minibus.
Yeah. Amazing.
To get around.
Yeah, totally.
So like hiring cars and stuff, yeah, it's expensive. But if there's 4 of you, if there's 6 of you.
Not too bad if you're splitting it between quite a few. ASI is a really good example where it's like
out in the middle of
nowhere, right? So it's like one, noting where you are, but also people say, there's not much accommodation in Castlemaine. Here's the hot tip. There's a lot of accommodation near Castlemaine. You know, like we're staying in Dalesford.
Dalesford's 30 minutes.
30 minutes down the road, right? So, I mean, it's a nice little trip and there's plenty of food.
It's 30 minutes on just a road where you won't see many cars in between.
Road. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like it's not a high traffic road. It's just a little country road.
There's
you sit on
shops.
100.
We have a kitchen.
Yeah.
We have a couple bedrooms, which makes it easier because they have to put up with a baby.
Yeah.
I was like, are you sure you want to split?
Dalesford's nice as well. Like it's a cute little town.
Yeah, it's a great little town.
So you got Dalesford 30 minutes away. Bendigo's 30 minutes away. Ballarat's an hour. What's the back towards Melbourne? Kyneton?
Yeah, Kyneton.
Yeah, however you pronounce it, the weird way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Cute town.
Yeah, but that's an hour.
Yeah.
And that's closer to Melbourne.
So
there's trains that go to Ballarat, to Bendigo.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of options. That's what we're saying.
We're 2 hours.
Just look what's around, what the availability is like. There is plenty of accommodation for not just ASI, but for most comps that you're doing. Packing, probably the other thing. I mean, we were just having a conversation and talking about how, like, I personally pack my competition equipment, especially for international competitions. I pack my competition equipment in my carry-on and put all my clothes and my other shit in the check-in luggage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really, it's less of a stress if you're flying in the week beforehand. But let's say you're doing like a state competition or you're flying in close to the date. If you do have any luggage issues and you don't have time to rectify those, then that becomes a really big issue.
Yeah.
So something just to consider is like packing for competitions. What are you putting in? What's an essential? What can you not compete without? Or what can you sneak in your your carry-on luggage versus what do you need in your check-in?
Yeah, I think shoes is probably the only one.
Yeah.
Like my lifters.
Yeah.
Like knee sleeves I can probably deal without. A belt I can probably borrow. I can't borrow someone's shoes.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to give them to me. Not if they're my competitor.
No, yeah, I was going to say, that height,
Leigh didn't turn up with any of his gear.
It's a height class, so everyone who is at the same size shoe as you is like in the 90s, like, oh, fuck no.
Nah, not for you.
Not so for you. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the primary things, like accommodation.
Well, we have this cool thing. We have this Facebook page.
Yeah, Strongman
That's
Australia.
Strongman Australia that has been pretty much dead in the water for 2 years.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like not much a lot used to get posted on there and a lot of tips and a lot of cool conversations and discussions. Not so much now, but very easy. And we used to do that like years ago. Is anyone going to here?
Yeah.
Does anyone have a lift from here?
Yeah.
Can anyone like line this up?
Yeah,
Who wants to split this? Like
utilizing.
Use the community.
Yeah. 100%. Definitely.
Like, because everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's sitting back going, oh, I wish I had someone to split it with, and no one puts up their hand.
And just also, the more you travel, the better your resources will get to do more travel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the more you meet people, I mean, we're fortunate. We have clients kind of everywhere, including around the world, which is super handy. But like, the more we've traveled, the more connections that we have internationally or like interstate, that'll help us out if we are traveling for a competition or coaching at a competition or whatever it is. That makes it a lot easier too.
Yeah, like I said, Ahmed came over from Singapore and competed here heaps at like the ISF ones, statics, everything like that. Super friendly.
Yeah.
And And he's just like, if you're in Singapore, let me know.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll show you all the best places to eat. We'll go train. We'll go hang out. We'll go have fun.
Yeah.
And it's like, if anybody traveled here, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll show you around. Come train in the gym.
Which just makes traveling fun. It's because it's not just about competition. It's about traveling and experience and getting the most out of, you know, people get jaded in the sport. And we've talked about this before, you know, like, oh, it's taken everything from me and it's given nothing. And like, don't get me started. But it's
all the sacrifice.
All the sacrifice, little gain. It's like, well,
I've lost all my friends.
Think about all the experiences and the people that you can meet and the amazing things that you can get out of not just going there and competing and trying to win, but going over and competing and making connections and meeting people and experiencing different things in different places. This can be state, you know what I mean? It can be international. It doesn't really matter, but there's a lot to be gained if you broaden that horizon or you make the effort to meet people or like create or foster relationships with people in other states or internationally as well.
So it just keeps coming back to just don't be a dick at comps.
Yeah.
Don't sit in the corner with your three friends and go, oh, don't know that person.
Yeah. I mean, feel free to sit in the corner during the comp and put your headphones in.
That person could be the fucking emperor's son of something. And could be like, yeah, come hang out with me in my country.
Yeah. I mean, it happens heaps.
Come do this comp.
Yeah, it's always like who you know. Like I remember when I was backpacking in Sri Lanka, I worked in a gym in Melbourne. And I remember this guy was Sri Lankan and I like messaged him. I got off the plane, I messaged him because I got to Colombo and I was like, this is... I got no idea what's going on here. And I messaged him. I'm like, hey man, like in Colombo, like what would you recommend doing? Like where would you stay? And he's like, oh, I'm home, man. I can, I'll pick you up.
Yep.
And I was like, cool. And then his parents owned like a whole bunch of bars and this like apartment complex. And he put me up in the top of this apartment complex with a pool on the roof and stuff. And I stayed there.
Yeah.
It's like who you know. And that opens doors too.
Yeah. Well, like Dewey came over here. He's from Thailand.
Yeah.
And did Static Worlds. He went and just did the Ultimate.
Yeah.
Strongman. He was the one that won the deadlift.
Yeah.
The 400 pull in the 105s.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so he came over with his partner.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I'm flying into Brisbane. Like, where could I go for food?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm at the Gold Coast. I'll just come get you.
Yeah.
Drove down to the Gold Coast, dropped him off. We went and got food.
Yeah.
And like, that was just, I had nothing to do that day.
And it'll create reciprocity down the line as well.
Otherwise, he would have been on a bus in Brisbane, no idea what he's doing. His partner doesn't speak the best
100%.
English.
Yeah, it's daunting, especially in a new country. Yeah. Speaking of international comps, World Ultimate was on. Some great performances.
Yeah.
Which was really interesting. I don't know whether everyone keeps tabs on like those world competitions and stuff, but some pretty phenomenal and strong performances across the board from guys, which was cool to see. So a comp that we're both looking at doing next year, all things going well.
Yeah, the Paris
World's
one.
Yeah, Paris World Ultimate Strongman 90s 105s.
What's his name that won?
90s or 105s?
105s.
Emmanuel Piscari.
Yeah, really strong at the moment.
Yeah, I competed against
105 log record.
Yeah,
190.
Yes, 190 log. I competed against Emmanuel when I was over there. And he's a super nice guy, like really lovely guy, and a very good competitor, like always solid. But you know, I was speaking to Luke Davies about the competition because he's my eye in the sky. You know, like he just knows everything.
The European connection,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly. I ask him a lot, and he just said like he just looks like he's put 10 kilos of mass on his upper body alone. Like he was super strong and super consistent.
Yep.
And he did very well across the day in the 105s. D Madden and Matt McKeegan, I think second and third respectively.
Yep.
Who also did quite well, which was interesting.
Those two have had some back and forth Instagram.
Oh man,
beef.
Really?
Yeah.
Fucking strongman.
I think it starts as a joke and it's banter, and then one joke goes a little far and someone's ego gets hurt, and then it's just
it's just
it's
people
all
with
on.
it. Like
it happens all the time.
It just happens all the time where like someone takes things a little bit too personally, and then they end up making 7 stories, like defending themselves, and then the other person, I don't know. It just there's a few things like that you could unpack here.
It's a sport filled with the strongest yet fragile people. just on the brink of snapping.
I've spoken to both of them. I coached Dean for a little while, you know.
I
like
love the strongman personality. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's chaotic. You don't know if it's up here or down
100%.
here.
Like Emmanuel's like such a pretty chill, quiet achiever, super nice guy, right?
Yep.
One thing that we just need to stop doing in strongman, full stop, is great competition. Love that Emmanuel did great or whatever. I would really love to see X, Y, Z competitors, you know, all be able to throw down to find out who is the strongest. Like Emmanuel's the fucking strongest. He won World's Strongest Man. He is the strongest person who was there. It's not, I really want to see Yuri and Camby and Tyson and, you know, Matt McKeague and Dean Madden and Emmanuel all sort of throw down. We all want to see that. Do you know what I mean? We all want to see that. But in this moment right now, and this goes for any competition, whoever was there and whoever won the fucking competition is the strongest man in the world. Full stop. You know, it just really grinds my gears.
Does it? I can't tell.
It really grinds my
been in
gears
the
when
house
people
for a
take
week.
it. Yeah, I haven't been let out of the house. It really grinds my gears, and like I like these guys, but like posts like that demean the person who just won and beat you, right? Or underplay that, and that's what they were having tips about because someone was making a thing about not prepping for Worlds and he didn't prep for Worlds and blah blah blah. I mean, like. We were talking about this earlier with like injury and all that sort of stuff. Like we don't need to make excuses. Like you either performed or you didn't perform. You either came second, third or first or you didn't podium and what have you. It's fine to sort of have some rationale about why maybe you didn't compete to the best of your abilities. But let's just acknowledge that the better man wins the day who wins the day on the given day. And that can change very quickly. Emmanuel can win that competition or Dean can win that competition. Yuri or Camby can win any competition. Myself can win some competition. Depending on the events and the given day and the preparation leading up to it, all these guys are strong.
Yeah.
All of us are strong. All of us are competitive and contenders for the top place. But unless you show up, put up and win, you are not the strongest man in the world. You are not second, you are not third, or you're not on the podium because you didn't do it on the day. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah, that's like any comp, anywhere,
any competition,
any sport, anywhere.
It's Australia's strongest man. It's like someone tears a hamstring before the last event, right? Well, you're not Australia's strongest man. You can't claim that because you didn't win because your body wasn't robust enough to complete the competition.
Yeah,
that's part and parcel of the sport, right? Like
it's the same as people that didn't turn up
because they're like,
I got injured 4 weeks out, but I would have won that, and it's like, well,
or
you wouldn't have because
coming up.
Your body fell apart.
It's like, I didn't win Australia's Strongest Man. I didn't win World's Strongest Man because I couldn't make it or had other competitions that took priority. It's like, well, you didn't win it, so you'll never know because the competition day, everything can go wrong and everything can go right. Anyone can have a day. And the events are so specific. Like at that level, it's really going to be based around the events as well. Like if you look at like Paris, great events for me, but I could go to OSG and completely not make the finals if the events aren't those events that are strong for me. And that's the whole thing with strongman is the events are varied and, you know, it's the strongest man on any given day in any given competition. And unless you're that person, shut the fuck up.
Well, you know what's part of being a good competitor? Actually getting to the comp.
Yes.
If you get injured along the way, you can't say you're the best or you would have won because it's like you can't even 100%. Finish your prep. Or you can't even get to the week of deload.
Fly to the comp and put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's probably a big thing, you know, like making to the comp both from an injury perspective, but actually putting it down to like actually making it to the competition. Like if you think that you can win, then go fucking compete.
Yeah. Everyone laughs at Steve Bradbury, but the work it would have taken just to get in the like ring,
anyone
whatever
can have
it was,
a day, bro, and everyone can have a bad day.
But the work that was put in just to put him in the mix with the other people. Even though he wasn't anywhere near as good as them, still worked to get there.
Of course.
Still pushed to get there.
Of course. He's at the world
stage. They didn't just pull him out of the crowd and go, hey, can you just chuck some things on and go around in circles?
Still at the world stage.
And if everyone falls, we'll give you a medal.
100%. It's still deserving.
Yeah.
The other thing that, I mean, something to note in terms of looking at world strongman stuff, and we're talking about it, is I think a lot of people who are looking to make that jump need to start looking at those competitions. You know,
just keep an eye on it.
Stop looking at, or like stop comparing or basing your numbers or your performances off like, you know, who's ahead of you. I mean, it's a good thing to keep coming up, but like looking at competitions like VIX or looking at competitions like the middleweight series and stuff, and like looking at those numbers, like for me, my goal was always to compete overseas and do well overseas. So when I was coming up and it was like Islands Power Comp, which was like the worlds at like Islands and stuff like that, and you're looking at some of those guys, I was watching the best guys in the world and looking at my numbers compared to those numbers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I was looking at like what I need to do or what do I need to do to close the gap between me and that, not the gap between me and winning VIX. And it's a good place to start if you're there. Sure, absolutely. But my eyes have never been on here.
Yeah.
My eyes and my numbers or like my training has always been based on, okay, I need to get this strong to be able to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for people to understand that if you are looking to go over to that competition or you're looking to get better, like exponentially better, don't measure yourself in the small pond that is us, even though we have a great quality pond.
Yeah.
Measure yourself against the pond that is out there, you know, like we're looking at 190 logs. We're seeing like 400 kilo deadlift swing competitions. We're looking at, 200 plus kilo stones done in runs. We're looking at 450 yokes being run with. We're looking at 170 farmers being carried in the 105s, right? Not on any given day, for example. Like that's not all in one day, but often.
See, I'd look at the weight class above. I'd be like, if I want to be one of the best 90s in the country, I should be able to walk into most 105 comps
in Australia
and be in the podium somewhere and be near the top.
Yeah.
So I would look at that. So then I start looking at the weight class up and I'm like, can I beat half those people?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, but they're heavier. So it's probably half the 90s cutting more weight than me.
I mean, it depends on the depth of the class too above you as well.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. You either look internationally.
Yes.
Because like if you think your ceiling's here, like if Tyson is everyone's ceiling, then everyone's like, I just got to try and bridge this gap and I can't. I'm doing all right. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
It's like, if you put your ceiling somewhere else, you're gonna get so much better.
That's a great way to put it, actually. So if you're like, I mean, the 105s, and this is, they're talking about the athletes and this tiff, and it was, of course I want to beat him as a great athlete.
Yeah,
it's like I understand in the 105s, like everyone wants to beat me.
Yeah,
like there's like everyone's out for blood. I haven't been beaten in the 105s by an Australian or at an Australian competition since 2015.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I understand this. And that's fine. That's cool. I get it. But if that's the ceiling and you're just trying to beat me, why not make the ceiling like I want to win worlds?
Yeah.
And then you're going to surpass me anyway.
Yeah, if you're thinking I just need to get a 150 or a 160
well, then your ceiling's
log.
always here, and it's like, okay, well, I'm only pushing myself to this.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, no. If you push yourself up to this, then you're going to. It's like shoot for the stars, land on the moon, right?
Yeah.
Like shoot for the stars, shoot for worlds, and you're going to beat me anyway.
Yeah.
But my goal has never been, and I'm sure it's the same for you. Like my goal has never been to beat anyone, and I get told that like, oh, this person just wants to beat you in the competition, and it's like, well, that's funny because my goal is to win. Do you know what I mean? Like I go to Worlds to win, not to beat Canby, not to beat Dean, not to beat Emmanuel. My goal's to win.
What a game plan though, to turn up to a comp and just be like, I'm just going to watch that one person and focus on them. Well, I'm going to focus on beating them.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not much of a game plan to do well.
No.
Because everything you do is going to be based off them. And if they're actually better than you, they're probably going to go after you.
Yes.
So you're just going to do your event and then watch them do better and go, oh, instead of just trying to do well.
Yeah, 100%.
Like play your own game plan.
Go to win.
Yeah.
Always go to win.
Yeah.
Never go to beat someone. Never think, I just want to go beat someone. It's like, it's cool to beat an athlete if they're like a rival or an idol or whatever it is. But like realistically, you're going into competitions to win the competition.
Yeah.
That's the goal. That's the end goal, right? So I think that's important to like note. But I think also the big thing was international competitions, looking at international competitions and setting your standard or setting the bar there if you're looking to do that long term.
Yeah. And if you can look at, because it's intimidating to look at a 190 log and be like, oh, that's what I've got to get to.
Yeah.
But you don't see all the training. You don't see the misses. You don't see what injuries or
Instagram
anything.
Highlight reel for this training.
You don't see everything that went into that. You just see that and go, oh, that was easy.
Yes.
Like, probably wasn't. He might have missed it 10 times in training.
Yeah, the highlight reel thing is definitely a real thing. Training on Instagram, we post, and like we're all culprits of this. We don't need to self-wallow in our misses, and we don't post the misses because like no one really fucking cares?
People
Do you know what I mean?
people barely care that I did 5 kilos more than last week.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, no one really
On
cares
something
that
good.
much. No one cares if it's like, I mean, no one cares that much if you post a 300 kilo deadlift now, let alone miss a 300 kilo deadlift.
The thing is, if you posted 400 kilo deadlifts regularly enough, no one would
Yeah,
care that you post 400 kilo deadlifts.
Yes, 100%.
Also, no one cares if you miss.
Just gets washed out in the grand scheme of all the strong motherfuckers that are on Instagram, right?
Jamal got Instagram and then nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Everyone's like,
God damn him.
that's what it is. Seeing him and like Larry Wheels and stuff just have like highlights.
Shit. So like, you can't compete with that.
No. So you just stop trying.
Yeah, I mean,
You just post something you're proud of.
You keep trying, but you're just stoked to be doing what you can do, and you're stoked when you do something that you're happy with.
Yeah.
But it is a highlights reel at the end of the day.
Yes. Everyone's is a highlight reel. Even their fails are a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Because it's posted with everything's posted with intention.
Yeah, for sure.
It's posted to be like, I'm just showing that I fail.
Yeah, or I'm showing that I'm failing to show that my prep or my execution isn't going well, and I want to justify it to the world and say that like this, and this is going wrong. Which, I mean, it's fine. Everyone uses their platform to do whatever they like, right? But my last week didn't go well.
Yep.
You didn't really see me post anything from last week, did you? Right? Like
that's the best way. If you want to get hooked into social media, start looking at everyone's dates of when they post things.
Yeah.
And be like, it's Monday. Haven't seen a log.
Didn't deadlift this week, clearly, or
did he deadlift? No.
And either it didn't go well or it was like a light week, and maybe I won't post a light week because it's not really noteworthy.
No.
But
I don't see a point in going, I just worked up to this today because it felt heavy.
100%. I mean, I pulled the hardest 330 of my... No, that's not true, but I pulled a very, very hard 330. I was supposed to hit like a 350, 360, like comfortable RPE9 single like last week. And I came in, I felt good, and I was pretty motivated, and I pulled 330 and it moved like dog shit.
Yep.
So like I called it there. I did some rows and I did some back accessory. Like, what do you want me to post?
Yeah.
Like... Oh, I had a baby. I'm tired. My back's a bit stiff from sitting in a like hospital bed for a week and reading.
Yeah.
Life's a bit slower. Blah 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 blah. Like I just fucking didn't pull the weight. Like it just felt heavy today. So I'll move on, and I don't need to self-wallow in it and like post 1,000 excuses. You can like if that's what you want to do and use the platform for, and like that's what your watchers are interested in. It's not a bad thing to show that. Like, there are ups and downs, but I just think it's important to know that like, there are bad weeks. Like I posted like a story a while ago talking about that Olympic weightlifting coach or that like Olympic coach, and he was sort of saying that like if there's a rule of thirds, right?
Yeah.
1/3 of your session should be great, 1/3 of your session should be okay, and 1/3 of your session should go poorly.
Yep.
Because that's what it is at the top end of performance.
Yeah.
Right. Like in a week, you're gonna have bad sessions. Like it's hard. Every week is hard. Every day is hard. Like fatigue, you got life going on, you got external circumstances. Like it's hard.
I did just like the carry medley the other week, and it was like the open women's weights. It wasn't even that heavy.
Yeah.
And then once I dropped it, I'm like, oh, sick. That hurts in my back now.
Yeah.
It's just like this little knot thing that pulled tight. Stayed there for 3 days. So I didn't deadlift because I started deadlifting, and I'm like, that still hurts. I didn't even do anything impressive.
No.
I didn't even get hurt. It's not enough to be like, I'm injured.
Yeah, I just feel a bit shit.
It's just annoying.
I feel a bit shitty, and it's a bit annoying today.
I take a deep breath and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
that's there.
Yeah, and it's part and parcel of doing.
Yeah, and at the peak end of coming into a comp,
Yeah.
that's enough to throw something out to where I'm like, not this week.
Yeah, not this week.
Yeah.
Not this week. Deadlifted, not this week. Came in Saturday, did the moving medley, smoked it. Week before, came in, did the moving medley a little bit lighter, was a little bit slower.
Yeah.
Was a little bit harder. Like just couldn't run as quickly, right? Like it's just a bit tired. And then came in Saturday and moved it great. So
yeah, we joke about the cliche saying of like, it'll be there next week.
Yeah.
It'll be a comp. But it is a good attitude as long as you're not just overshooting and your training's crap.
Yeah.
It is kind of a good attitude to have of like, if you do miss something, you're just like, next week.
Yeah, I mean, it matters.
It'll be there next week.
It matters if you miss something, for sure, especially at some levels.
If you miss it for 6 weeks straight, it's probably not going to be there next week.
But like a bad day is a bad day. Like you wipe your hands of it, and you just make sure you don't have 2 bad sessions in a row.
Yeah, I've said that to a lot of people. Just some days are just bad days, and we can try to look at your sleep, your food, everything. Everything could be on point, and some days are just bad.
Yeah.
For no reason on paper. The same as you could come in and have 3 hours sleep, stressed out of your mind, body's sore, and have the best session of your life.
Correct.
Like sometimes it just does not make sense.
Yeah. Sometimes you walk into the gym and you're tired as fuck, and everything's like, oh, okay, I've just got to get this session done. I've got to tick the box, and then you have the best session of the week.
So everyone says just turn up.
Yeah, just turning
like
up.
That's the most of it.
That's the other thing. Like if you have a bad session and it's like, talking about the highlight reel, and it's not one that makes the highlight reel, but you sort of tick the box, or you at least get something done, or it's like it feels a bit heavier but you got it done. Well, then you're still moving the needle towards the goal, right? Like it's still better than not doing the work at all.
Does failing a weight still count as lifting a weight?
Yeah, we talked about that with the stone the other day. Way to bring up the highlight reel thing.
Yeah, no one saw that, did they?
Yeah, no one saw the stone.
You can post it today.
Yeah. At the very end of a very long strongman session, here's my excuses. I was supposed to do like triple at 170 to 1.3 meters. And I did 3 stones. I just didn't quite get it on top of the
3 great stones to 1.29 meters.
Yeah, I did 3 wonderful 170 reps at 1.29, and I just didn't get it to the platform. But the work's still there.
It's the platform, and
it just rolls back every time, and it was so frustrating. Boy. But like we're talking about it, because I was like, well, you can do it again. And I'm like, yeah, mate, no, probably not. Like I still did it. It just didn't get onto the platform.
Yeah.
Like I'm still going to be tired from it. Like I'm not going to have much more.
Your body still did the work.
Yeah, 100%. Like I still lapped and extended the 170 stone for a triple.
Yeah.
Just not quite high enough.
Yeah. All the work.
Yeah, none of the reward. None of the posting reward.
Yeah, none of the posting reward.
Tough.
Just wasn't a happy ending.
Often isn't.
No. So yeah, like I've said that to people, especially like peaking and like heavier weights. It's just like you get 3 shots at it.
Yeah.
And whether you get them or not, that's the work.
Yeah, you're still doing the work.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you just grind yourself into the ground, right?
Yep.
Like that Thanos perfectly balanced knife meme and stuff when you're writing a program, and then suddenly someone misses it 4 times, so they have 7 other cracks at it. And you're like, well, that was an expensive day, wasn't it? Like I like that term. One of my clients used it recently. This was more expensive than what it should have been.
Yep.
And I really liked it when he put it in the notes, because I was like, that's a great way to look at it.
You just spent too much money on that day.
Yeah, you spent too much money on that day. And now when you're budgeting for the week, now you're eating ramen on Friday.
Yeah.
You got 2-minute noodles.
Well, going off that analogy, if you spend so much on that day, you could still be paying for it next week.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. You got Afterpay, bro.
So you could send. You could. Can you get Afterpay for training? Because God, I'd like that.
That exercise.
Can I pay for it later?
that effort was so expensive. I had to front the money, and then I had to Afterpay it for another 4 weeks.
You get a credit card for that?
Yeah, I'm putting my energy on credit card.
Yeah, imagine the interest on that.
Yeah.
Actually, that's that like burn bright and burn short,
Yeah,
like that
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
that's the credit card,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's
the
the
credit
interest.
card. Yeah.
The interest is you're gone.
Yeah,
You're out of the sport.
Blacklisted. Yeah. Black mark on your name. Cannot borrow. Cannot be part of society.
You're so cooked after that year of competing that you're out for the next 5.
100%. You've overextended your stay.
Yeah.
On that note, that's probably good.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Strongman Say. We'll see you again in a fortnight.